subscribers, we are talking with the writer and researcher Jean Matlock, and we are continuing our conversation about ancient civilizations and the Anatolians and much, much more. And I want to backtrack a little bit from our first segment where we talked a little bit about the Anatolians, and I know also that Jean have done some research on Atlantis and so forth, another fascinating topic and area. And Jean, I read in a paragraph about your book that was available through Amazon. The book was What Strange Mysteries Unites the Turkish Nations, India, Catholicism, and Mexico. And there it says, author Jean Matlock traces the ancient Turks, progenitors of all humankind, from their first home at the Arctic Circle. And I'm kind of stuck on that note, find that fascinating. Their first home at the Arctic Circle? Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Evidently, Turkey at one time was allied with Greece in some way. And so we had, and these Panis, what they called them, or the Phoenicians, they lived down at the upper northwest India. And then they went up into Central Asia, and they settled in Turkey and Bulgaria, which I think was the original with the Phoenicians that we know, you know.
Yeah.
And for some strange reason, they broke off from Greece. And I correspond all the time with people of Turkey, and they don't like the Greeks at all.
Yeah.
And they say they stole our civilization from us. And even now they're uncovering in Turkey civilizations that are 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,000 years old. Right now they're discovering those in Turkey. Turkey is like a part of the world that's just now being discovered, and also Siberia.
Okay.
Now the Siberian natives speak a type of Turkic.
Mm-hmm.
There are about 150 million Turks, either of Mongolian ancestry or Turkic ancestry in Central Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And they all consider themselves that they came from the Turkic roots.
Okay.
And they call themselves Aryans. They call themselves Adi or Kudus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I first started my book, Jesus and Moses are buried in India, birthplace of Abraham and the Hebrews. I fell into a trap of some Hindus who call themselves Hindutva or Hindu nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
And they claim that the Aryans were just an invention of terrible racist white people, and that the Aryans never invaded India.
Mm-hmm.
Then if the Aryans were never in Central Asia, then how come the Turks go around calling themselves Aryan?
Mm-hmm.
And also Kudus.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Krishna himself was a Kudus, and Lord Krishna was not at all a white man. He was a black man.
Yeah.
As the myths about him state. And so I made that mistake of falling in line with the hate white people crowd. Because here in the United States, we all have an inferiority complex about how we once mistreated colored people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I fell in line to that because I already had the guilt complex anyway.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think and I tell people this: I damaged my book by going along with the hate white people crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I really damaged the book because the Christayas were of different races. They were the five Christayas, or the Christianes, are the five basic races of mankind.
Yeah. Okay.
So they could not all be white, and but they spoke Aramaic as a Turkic language. It was very popular at one time. It was spoken throughout Central Asia, throughout Iraq and the Middle East, and even down into what is called Western India today, which was then, it was an ancient civilization there at one time.
Yeah.
And these people were called Asuras or Assyrians. Now the Hindu myth speak of the Mayans as Asuras.
Yeah.
Now the Mayans were brilliant astronomers. They could even predict almost when the world would end.
Yeah.
They were considered magicians, even back in India.
Mm.
And so later on, when Kubera decided to go to Ceylon, which was called Lanka, he took those Mayans with him, with him, and they found a district or I guess a state or something like that in Lanka, which even today is called Maya.
Okay.
And so he had a type of capital, even up in the middle part of India, subcontinent of India. He had a type of capital there that was called Trikuta.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went down and he took the Mayans down to Ceylon or Sri Lanka,
Mm-hmm.
and they built another Trikuta on a mountain. I have pictures of it here.
Mm-hmm.
And they took some savages along with them, because they had savages in northern India called Rakshasas who would not act civilized. They were always causing trouble and killing people and this and that and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so he figured that if he would take them to tropical Lanka, then they would civilize themselves. But they did not do it. They were even worse there.
Mm-hmm.
So he got some, from what I read, it was a type of airship that he called a Vimana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He got airships and took these people over to America and what is now Mexico and and Central America.
Okay.
Put those people there.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that something like this happened because even the Mexican flag today shows it. You know, the eagle with a serpent in its mouth?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that used to be an ancient Hindu flag.
Oh, really?
India. Yeah. And
if I'm sorry to interrupt here, but how it's always interesting to hear approximate time, if that is possible. How long ago was this?
Well, this is what I'm talking with Mexicans and Hindus about. I tend to think that perhaps it was around 3,000 or 4,000 BC, but a lot of Hindus they even put an earlier date about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to come up with a correct date.
Sure.
But like this February when I went with my new wife, unfortunately, down to don't tell her I ever tell you this.
Okay. Hope she's not listening in then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we went down to Mexico City, and we every afternoon at 5 o'clock. Well, the soldiers come out of the National Palace and unfurl the flag. And I have lived among the Mexicans so many years. I feel good in my heart when I see the Mexican flag the way I see my American flag.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that great big eagle up there with a serpent in its mouth, and realize that is the oldest standard on earth.
Really?
That even existed in India. You know, in these own magazines, I have pictures of their standard. You know, of the Naga. Mm-hmm. With the serpent in his mouth.
Because in a way, because if you translate at least the term Quetzalcoatl, as far as I know, that means feathered serpent.
Yeah, a feathered person, a serpent. And see, Quetzalcoatl, he had to be related to Vishnu some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to be because that's a symbol of Vishnu.
The eagle with the snake.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
That had to have happened, you know, in about the same time, I guess. I don't know, but I myself am absolutely shocked, you know, when I see this. Even the Mexicans, when I told them about it, you know, when I was giving my speeches in April back in Saltillo, Mexico, they got so enthusiastic about it, and they really felt, you know, that they're getting to know what their country really meant to the world at one time.
Yeah.
And so he took them over to Mexico and Guatemala in those areas and dumped them there. And then there's an island off the coast in the Caribbean area off the coast that he built another capital city called Trikuta.
Trikuta, okay.
Yeah, and just back in India and also as back in Ceylon. Now, over the years, people have lost contact with that Trikuta. They don't know where it is because, you know, Lanka at one time went under too, under the water.
Okay.
But it took years to go under water. Even today, it's still going under. You've heard of the Maldive Islands, haven't you?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Maybe see the Maldive Islands. They're supposed to be going underwater in the next 30, 40 years. All those islands were little islands called atolls.
Yeah.
You know, and and they just suddenly just wore away and went underwater.
Okay.
And I think that's perhaps where we could have perhaps gotten our Atlantis legend from, because over in Mexico, even today, there are Atlantises all over Mexico, even today.
Sure. I mean,
this is what happens in the Nahuatl language. If there's a town that's by the water, or under the water, or on it, or somehow, or like an island, then they call it a Atlan.
Atlan, okay.
Like Mazatlan, the port of Mazatlan, Mas, and then Atlan. But not always, but in most cases that way. Now, if it's a place on the water in Mexico, I'm talking about the Indian language now, not Spanish.
Sure.
Now, if it's a place on or by the water, then they call it Atlantis.
Huh. Nice.
For instance, you heard of Xochimilco, the flower gardens?
No, I don't know.
Well, the beautiful flower gardens that they have near Mexico City.
Okay.
The Aztecs produced their food. Beautiful islands. I was there last February with my new wife. And see, if I didn't know that it was named Xochimilco, place of the flowers, then I would call it an Atlantis.
Right.
And or take Pátzcuaro, Lake Janicio and Pátzcuaro. It's a beautiful lake with an island in the middle, with people living in the middle. Well, if I didn't know the name of Janicio, I would call it Atlantis.
Okay.
Now they're idols. Now they had atlases like we did, holding up the world. But they didn't call their atlases atlases. They called them Atlantis.
Okay.
In fact, Tula Hidalgo, where the Quetzalcoatl went, you still see on the top of that pyramid some big idols that at one time held up the temple roof that symbolized the people down here in America's holding up the Atlantis, the top of the world.
Okay.
See, and so they were the Atlantis, and they knew they were at the bottom of the world. They called themselves Atlantis. Then they called people over there in Turkey and India, they'd call them the Talantis. And I saw those idols. And then I was in this museum in Mexico City in February, and I saw some other idols there that were called Atlantis also. No, that's Atlas. Now, they called the Atlantic Ocean, they didn't call it Atlantic the way we did. They called it Atlantona.
Atlantona, okay.
Atlantona. Antona means the glorious mother of the waters.
Okay.
And so I've tried to so Tricuta, it had to have been at Atlantis. Now, not Atlantis by name, like we called Tricuta, but it had to be a place by the water, didn't it?
Sure.
And so in that language, it would have to be Atlantis. And I tell people this, and I lose the argument all the time. I never win it.
Okay.
They think I'm trying to talk about a place with a special name.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's a man from India one time. I'm friends with him. He lives in Texas, and he got a website trying to say that Western India off the coast was Atlantis because of all the runs there.
Yeah.
And so he wrote me and asked me what I thought about it, and I says, "You're a loser."
Okay.
I says, "If my Atlantis was really Atlantis and I lost, then yours is not Atlantis. You're going to lose for sure."
Okay.
And no, everybody wants to think of an Atlantis as a special name. I say there isn't.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean they're finding, ruins under the water everywhere. They're looking basically. I mean there are lots of places. I mean around the coast of Cuba, they've made discoveries. Off the coast of Japan, they've found underwater cities, and I guess everyone in a way want to claim that is Atlantis